Hello, my name is Andrew Thake. I'm a Divisional Director with Resourcing Tomorrow. Delighted to be joined today by Fabiana Di Lorenzo, who is a Director of the Responsible Minerals Initiative. Delighted to have you with us today, Fabiana.
Thank you for having me.
Fabiana, who is the Responsible Minerals Initiative and how did it come into existence?
So, Andrew, the Responsible Mineral Initiative is a very well-established and old organization set up by the industry more than 10 years ago to help downstream companies source responsibly the 3TG, the tin, tantalum, tungsten, and gold minerals. Back when Dodd-Frank and the OECD were then creating their own guidelines and legislations. But the RMI really helps members figure out how they could go collectively about sourcing minerals responsibly. We have more than 500 members across the whole value chain, which helps members really understand the complexities of the sector, because they can exchange knowledge and understanding of the challenges they have. And since over the last 2 years, the RMI has expanded its scope, and they started working on the whole minerals and the whole scope of minerals. So we went from focusing on 3TG to focusing on all minerals. We developed the tools along with the members so that they can use these tools to do their own due diligence. And we also have a standard that is used to assess smelters and refiners to make sure that those smelters and refiners, so the pinch points of the supply chain, can report their responsible sourcing practices so that the downstream buyers can say, yes, the SORs, the smelters or refiners in my supply chain, are sourcing responsibly from different streams and from different mines.
Can you tell us about your latest initiatives in responsible sourcing?
We have done quite a lot of things over the last couple of years. To start with the launch of our new standard. So historically, many of the supply chain due diligence standards focus on Annex 2 risks, so the most important human rights and corruption risks in the supply chain that are listed in the OECD guidance on minerals. But with the new standard, what we have done is we have expanded the risk scope. So now we're going to be looking into how companies identify and manage the broad scope, the broad ESG risks, not only forced labor, corruption, gross human rights violations, and so on. So we have expanded the scope, and we also have launched facility assessment. So we have the possibility now for companies to assess their own ESG practices. So one standard looks at how they source their minerals in their supply chain. The other looks at themselves. How do you manage those risks within your own four walls? Another activity which we are very proud of is we acknowledge the existence of other standards out there and the fact that they have been doing this work for many years. And what we have decided to work is to support the industry towards better interoperability and also work on how we can provide guidelines and protocol for credential exchanges of data to improve transparency. And we are doing this along with the UNTP and with our members. And we are hoping that this will help the sector at large to increase the exchange and transparency. And one other piece of work we often don't hear often stakeholders don't know about is our collective leverage efforts. So our conformant list doesn't just happen. It's the result of our members coming together, mapping their supply chain, trying to understand who's out there by using tools like the mineral reporting template. And once they have understood who's out there, they then do outreach, try to understand, but what do you do as a company? What is your core business? And that then allows us to understand whether it can be assessed and starts a discussion on best practice and how they can improve their business activities. And we are quite proud of this collective leverage effort because it opens doors and a dialogue with companies that sometimes might go under the radar, but they do play a very important role in the sector.
You're also engaging with institutional investors. Can you tell us a little bit about the RMI Investor Network?
Yes, the investor network came about after a couple of investors have asked us whether they could become members. And we didn't really have a place for investors to become members in the RMI, given that it's an electronic company or a mineral sector company, industry association. So we created the investor network to accommodate these interests, and is a place where investors can join and start a dialogue within the safe space of the RMI, and can really build also relationship with companies along the supply chain. And but investors don't need to become members to have a dialogue with us. We are engaging constantly with initiatives out there, like Mining 2030, for example, to really understand, is there any place, any area where we can collaborate? And we're trying to understand that, but also with individual investors, because there's definitely cross-sectorial leverage opportunities out there, areas where we could use collective leverage between investor sector and industry. And it's really about unpacking those and understand where we can collaborate to drive performance and to change the way some companies along the supply chain operate.
What are RMI's priorities for the next 6 months?
I think for the next 6 months, we're really focusing on implementing our new standards. We decided to step away from assessing mines and focus on our bread and butter. So assessing smelters and refiners well, and do it well, because it's a hard work. And also to help them improve their business practices. We are gonna focus on that, making sure we can deliver meaningful training so that they understand what good ESG practices mean. Let's not forget, we're moving from a decade where companies have been asked to perform well only on honest risks to all of a sudden the full range of ESG risks. This is really a steep curve, and we need to support those facilities to understand what is expected of them, how they can improve their practices. So we're investing also on training to make sure that they understand what is expected of them. We also going to work closely with other actors of the supply chain, our members and other standards, to develop a common language for credential exchange. As I said to you before, creating this interoperable system where data can flow between different organizations. So we need to come to agree on a common language, and we're doing this with the UNTP to make sure we implement a credible system that everybody can use. And one thing that we are also focusing on is to update our grievance mechanism. We are trying to make sure we look at it with independent eyes, so with an external party, and understand how we can strengthen that. And it's going to be a journey. We are not going to be figuring it out right away. In a couple of months, we have a plan on how to go about it, and this is what we want to focus on the coming year.
At last year's Resourcing Tomorrow, you won the Rising Star Award. What can the mining industry do to encourage more young people to join its ranks?
That's a very important question, right? We discuss this in every platform I attend, any association, and but I do speak with young people a lot, and I've realized that mining is still just about rocks and extraction for them. But what they miss is that it's fundamentally about people, because when you start mining in places where communities already live. But this doesn't really it's not visible to them yet. We need to connect more to other fields, so that this career becomes more attractive and it attracts brilliant minds. But if we think about it, really, mining intersects with so many different topics, with climate science, robotics, AI, data ethics, land stewardship, indigenous rights, knowledge, and policy reform. It's actually very diverse. But and on top of this, today, if you want to work meaningfully in a mining company, you need to understand value chain and how to open this dialogue with downstream buyers, with companies that ultimately use those minerals to produce end products. So you need to understand your clients, even if they're far away from you, and understand what they expect. And making this intersection visible, show that career can be in mining can be very dynamic, cross-cutting, and also purpose-driven. The fact is that the sector has evolved, but we talk about this in our inner circle. It's not clear, it's not a common knowledge. And we still go to universities to talk to young people, but we are not really engaging with primary and secondary school, where we can spark the curiosity, we can show real possibilities. I think we should be doing better in doing that, and to show that mining must. It's more than just extraction of rocks, to show how minerals power the technologies that we use, and how the same technologies can really help us mine more responsibly. This is something we can engage with also in secondary school, and to a certain extent also into mining school, into primary schools. And one thing I recently thought about, and I was thinking, there's no real mutual challenges in the mining sector, right? I haven't seen a design zero waste mine or a regenerate a tailing facility challenge where you can enter the space of innovation and not just extraction, and you can really engage with universities and young people to understand what kind of ideas they can bring to the sector. I think this would really change also the mining sector, because they would engage with young people in their space of comfort, and they would understand what inspires them. So really, I think we need to understand better. The truth is that in the past, I worked for the UK government and I worked on youth programs, and I ended up having to engage with them more and understand what inspires them. And that leads me now to have meaningful conversation with them and understand that we need to change as a sector and start adapting the industry to the future that they want to build, more than expecting them to adapt to our industry. And I feel like this is what really could be an opportunity to shape the sector itself.
Thank you very much for your time. That was Fabiana Di Lorenzo, Director of Responsible Minerals Initiative. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.